What I'm going to teach you is the way to use them correctly. Because a lot of students will see like, oh, that's turquoise, and then they'll just cover the whole pot with it. I'm like, oh, that hurts me inside. So I want to, and every time I do a demo of these, I try to teach them the correct way to use them. So I'm going to teach you 3 different techniques. The first one is doing an image transfer. So that's what I do on here. So you actually put it on newsprint and put it on the pottery. Now everything that I do on Bisqueware with the underglaze. If you research ceramic image transfers, most of the teachers will, or most of the ceramic artists do it all on raw clay, like when it's leather hard. But because you can't have mason stains in ceramics, school, like high schools and elementary schools, you can't make colored slips typically. And so the slip technique is what a lot of ceramic artists do, but for me that just doesn't work. So I had to find a way to do the same thing with underglazes. So what I did is I did a lot of research on like chipping paint and decaying things, because I just find that really intriguing. And so I kind of tried to duplicate the texture, and I think I finally got it to where I'm happy with it. And it's been a lot of trial and error. So I'm going to share my techniques with you, so you're going to know all my secrets. I'm going to show you how to use sticky foam to print, and then I'm going to show you how to do stencil work on your pottery as well. So I have all the supplies over here that I'm using. I have all on this table, so everything you need will be up here. We have sinks over there, trash cans. Ooh, that's better. So I'm going to do like, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes of demos, and then I'll just kind of set you free and let you use the materials as you wish. Okay, so we can use all the underglazes until they're empty, so don't feel like you have to, so is a rub. Okay, so this is called an underglaze rub. So this is how I get this texture on the outside where it looks kind of rugged and antique. So this is just a little bamboo jar. So what I did was I actually trimmed the pots on the wheel, and I get this line texture on the in the inside of the foot and then on the outside. So I just do a rub. So I use the chocolate brown underglaze. So the reason that I got a big chocolate brown is so that you could do the rubs if you wish, because I had a feeling that a lot of you would want to try this out. You can do the rub on smooth clay, but it works best on rugged clay, or like a nice textured surface. And all you have to do is take a brush, and when you use underglazes, I like to dab. So I just dab it in the cracks and any crevice. And you want to make sure it gets in all the cracks too. So it's fun. When I teach this to my high school students, it's like magic. They're like, Hanson, why are you covering it all up? It's fun. So this is something that you could definitely do with any age group too, because all you have to do is put it on the whole surface. So it's not like you have to be really detailed with it. So I'm going to put it on the bottom as well. So I basically cover the whole bottom of it like this. Now I'm not going to do anything up here yet, because I'm actually going to do the rim texture on the top there. But I did bring it a little bit over on that flat, smooth surface, so I can show you what it actually looks like on a smooth surface, because you will still get a little bit of a tint to it. And the way I describe this to students is I call it a tint. And so I say, you don't just cover this, it's more of a tint, so you're like tinting the clay. And for that, it seems to make more sense with high school kids if that's how you describe it to them. So just a little tip. High school students, if you've never used underglaze in your classroom, are very, very confused about the difference between glaze and underglaze. It doesn't matter how many times you explain it, every single day. Hanson, why do you have clear glaze on the underglaze test tiles? Every day. And I don't know what the solution is to help them remember. I've tried so many different ways. But I think describing as a tint works the best. Okay? So I'm going to let that dry. And underglaze will dry fast on Bisqueware because it just kind of absorbs, but you want to let it dry completely. So while that's drying, I'm going to start another technique. Okay? And this is just cutting out stencils. Okay? Now I'm going to do this on a tile, and then I'm just going to wash it off. Because the beauty about underglaze is if you mess up, you can take a sponge and sponge it all off and try it again. So that's the beauty of underglaze. So somebody can use this towel when I'm done. I'm just going to sponge it off. But I have cutting boards and X-Acto knives. Please make sure if you use an X-Acto knife to have a cutting board underneath so you don't cut through the canvas. Okay, so I just printed off a bunch of random stencils online. I have like airplanes, little insects, flowers. I've got these in a little Ziploc baggie up here. All you're going to do is cut out that image. So it works best with images that are just plain black. And I'm going to cut out...
Is it just a regular, like...
Just regular printer paper.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing special. But I'm just going to cut out that image with an X-Acto knife. And the kids really like this one. This one's really easy to do. There are a lot of ceramic artists that use this technique as well. And while I'm doing this too, I will say, if you go online and research image transferring, a lot of ceramic artists will transfer like actual photographs onto their pottery. And you can do that with underglaze, okay? If you're familiar with screen printing, and if you're familiar with Photoshop, you can actually make, and if you aren't familiar, this is going to be really confusing when I say this, but you can make a four-part, a four separation print. So you can separate it into CMYK, and you can actually use turquoise, yellow, turquoise, yellow, pink, and black underglazes, and you can actually screen print on your pottery in layers. So if you know how to do that four-part separation, you can actually transfer images with the underglaze. It's not something that I have tried just because it's such a long process, and I can't burn screens. I don't have a UV table. But if you have resources that can do that, that'd be a fun thing to try out. So you use it basically just like screen printing ink, but instead of screen printing ink, you just use underglaze. Okay. So all I'm doing is I'm just cutting out this little airplane. So all I have is this little jet that I printed out. So adorable. It's going to look fly.
It's early.
Same reaction as my students. Okay. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm actually going to get water on this piece. So I'm just going to soak it in water. And then I'm going to stick it to my piece of Bisqueware. So it works better with a tile. Okay, so I'm going to get it even more wet because I want to make sure that it's completely stuck down on the pottery. Okay. Now while it's still wet, I'm going to take underglaze. So I'm going to do the chocolate brown again. And so this part, you're actually going to cover up a lot of the clay surface. But whatever you peel off, or whatever's blocking, is going to be the raw clay color. So I'll just cover up that whole surface area. I have a lot of students that do this, and it turns out really, really professional. Okay, so we'll let that dry. And while that's drying, I'll scrub this off now.
Devin, this might be a dumb question.
No.
Do that layer two, or like put the underglaze down first, and then put the mask on, and then put the layer?
Absolutely, yeah. With underglazes though, if you're going to put clear glaze on top of your underglaze, okay, I would not do more than 3 layers of underglaze, because I've seen it where, okay, so I'll give you a lot of information here. That's a good question. So if you put clear glaze on top of your underglaze, if you fire your underglazes to whatever cone you fire at, the underglaze will be a matte surface. It will not be glossy. If you want it to be glossy, you need to re-bisque fire your piece. So if you have underglaze on it, you put it through another bisque. When it comes out of the bisque, the underglaze will be hardened so it won't come off anymore. Then you put a clear coat of clear glaze on it, fire it in the glaze kiln, and then the underglaze won't run. If I just took this as it is and put a clear glaze on top and fired it, the underglaze could run underneath the glaze. I've had that happen a lot, especially with really detailed things. So I always tell the kids, just to avoid any heartbreak and tragedy, to re-bisque all of their underglaze work first before they put a clear coat. And so, remind me what your question was again.
Can you put layers
The
of
layers,
underglaze,
yeah.
then mask, then underglaze?
So you can put as many layers as you want if you're not doing a clear coat. If you're doing a clear glaze, if you do more than 3 underglaze colors, a lot of times the glaze won't cover up or like separate. The clear glaze will separate from the underglaze while it fires. I've seen that happen a lot, so it just doesn't turn out like you wanted it to. It's not going to kill it, but if you're going to put clear glaze over and you want to do layers, I wouldn't do more than 3 layers.
But what about with your stencil? Can you, if you wanted to do brown underglaze,
And then do a
the
teal on
whole
top.
surface, and then put the stencil down and then go blue over it so it'd be brown underneath, do you have to biscuit and then do the second one?
No, you don't. But you have to be really, really careful when you're doing it, because if you got water on the underglaze, the water will wash it right off. So to be safe, you could biscuit every layer. But I know it's just kind of trial and error. You can try it. But if you're going to put clear glaze over, I wouldn't do more than 3 layers. Okay. And honestly, a lot of this just came from trial and error, trying things. Okay. So now I'm going to do that rub. So all I'm going to do, and we actually have these containers over there. So if you want to grab a container with water, or you can just do this at the sink. I did bring some nice clean sponges for you. I know. So you're just going to take the sponge, and you don't want the sponge to be soaking wet. You just kind of want it to be damp. And just very carefully, you're going to sponge. These sponges are new. I need to soak some more water in. And what it does is the underglaze will stay in all the cracks, but will come off the surface. And these sponges haven't absorbed a lot of water yet, so you might have to work into it a little bit. But it should look something like this after you sponge it off. Okay? Super easy. You dab underglaze in the cracks, sponge it off. My kids love this technique because it instantly turns your pottery from. I'm not insulting elementary teachers, but I say a lot of elementary pottery isn't that advanced, right? Well, this takes it from like an elementary pottery to an advanced project. All you have to do is that rub to make it look antique, and you can do this with any color. So like you could have the kids make a textured piece with carvings, put any color of underglaze in those carvings and sponge it off, and it'll completely change the look of the piece. And they'll be bringing home some really advanced looking ceramic work, so that's pretty cool. I have a lot of parents that'll be like, can you host a workshop for parents? That's funny, because their kids are bringing home stuff that they use. And it's funny, like a lot of kids take ceramics and they don't understand that you can use the stuff that they make. I'm like, everything we make in here is dishwasher and microwave safe. They're like, it is?
Yeah.
So as you can see too, on this, just the smooth surface, it does have a small rub to it as well. On a smooth surface.
Like a patina.
Now I'm also going to, before I do this print, so I'm going to do the rim print with you as well. Before I do that, I like to, basically I want it to look like there's rust underneath the paint. Like I want it to look like rust with paint chipping. So what I do is I just take a clean coat. Chocolate brown is the one that I use the most. I just love this color. So I just do a flat coat of the chocolate brown before I do the transfer, and that's what gives it that rust look. So the reason I didn't do this when I did the rub is because I accidentally sponge it off every time, and then I'm just wasting underglaze. So I always do it before I do that transfer, but I want to let it dry.
Devin, what is your favorite clear glaze to put over the top? What do you feel works the best over the velvet underglaze?
I use all Amaco Potter's Choice glazes, and they work really well. And the main reason I like Amaco Potter's Choice for the Cone 5 and Cone 6 is that you can layer the glazes to make different colors. Mm-hmm. And they layer really well. Like actually on their website, if you search any of their glazes, they'll give you layering options. And they do them all for you. And the kids can research and find the one they like and then do it. It's amazing. Like I should actually send them an email about that and thank them. Because the kids love it. Like by the time they're in advanced ceramics, at PV I like revamped the ceramics program there. And so I created, before all they had was ceramics, and then I created an advanced ceramics class, and we're working on an advanced, what I want to do is beginner, intermediate, and advanced, so I want to do 3 classes. But by the time they're in advanced, they don't even use just a flat color anymore, they just use multiple. So the Potter's Choice glaze, that's the clear, it's actually called Amaco Zinc Free, or what is it called? I think it's Zinc Free Clear. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. So if you look it up, but yeah, it's Cone 5, Cone 6. It has like a blue label on the bottle. But does anybody else use that one? Am I saying the right title? Zinc. I'm pretty sure it's zinc free. You can always email me too, and I'll get you the exact name of it. But yeah, that's the clear glaze I use. But I fire at Cone 5, so I don't know what you fire at. But I'm a big Amaco glaze fan. Which, by the way, if you need a really good clay supplier, Paoli Clay Company in Wisconsin is amazing. I was actually recommended to them by Terry Breck, who works at Dowling High School.
What is it?
Paoli, Paoli. And they're a small company in Wisconsin, and they'll bring it to you like on their own truck. I think I just bought 3,000 pounds with delivery. It cost me like $1,100 for 3,000. So it's like a little more pricey than like Minnesota or Continental, but it comes from a small company. It just makes me feel good when I buy it.
It's a really cool place. We had a workshop near there, and they let us go in and see how they made the clay.
Yeah, it's an unincorporated town.
Exactly.
I love it.
It's
yeah.
awesome. And there's a bunch of ceramic places around there.
Yeah, I love Madison. Madison is amazing. But, Yeah, that's a good place to go for clay. But yeah, Paoli Clay Company is really, really good. And you should tell them that you know Devin Hanson and that he referred you. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is actually, let's peel this guy off. So now that this is dry, all I do is I just take the tip of an X-Acto knife, and you want to be really careful when you do this. You want to take your time. You just kind of pick at the side of it, and then very carefully peel it off, and then leave that print underneath. So like super simple, but looks really professional when it's done. So you can do that on the side of your pots, especially things that have carvings in the middle. So a lot of the stencils that I have in here, they're not just plain black shapes. They have carvings in the middle. So if you do really detailed designs like this, they turn out really, really professional. So I have some that, like this one, that's like a scorpion. So I tell the students, sometimes the students get confused because there's not really an outline on some of these. So like this one right here doesn't really have an outline. If I were you, I would just cut around the shape as best as you can and then try to cut out as much white in the middle. Or the black, cut the black out and then put it in there and do the stencil. And it turns out really nice if it has a lot of that white negative space in the middle. So I have a whole bag of these that you can look through and try. Okay. So there, I already finished one technique. That's just the print. Now, the underglaze has a tendency to kind of flake. So all I do is I take my finger and I just tap it like this. And that will kind of flatten it. You don't want to rub it. If you rub it, it'll smear. So you just want to tap it, and then I put it on the bisque rack, refire it. When it comes out, it'll be super hard, and I can glaze it like that. So that's a really simple technique, and for young kids, this is pretty. I mean, if you can do like larger pieces, this is a really. I think this could work with any age group. I mean, I don't know how confident they are working with X-Acto knives, but they could totally use scissors and cut normal shapes. So that's one, and then I'll sponge all that off, and somebody else can try it. Okay, so the first thing that I do when I do this transfer, so again, I'm going to show you how to do this rim, the way that I do this rim. So when I do this, I actually layer the underglazes. So I put that bottom coat on that I want to kind of look like rust. So I'm not going to do anything with that. And then what I've done on the newsprint is I've put just a solid stripe of turquoise underglaze. My favorite underglaze colors are yellow, turquoise, red, and dark green. Those ones are like the best, super good quality, and I have all of those out here. Some of them I got new ones too, like I've never tried avocado. Lilac, you have to get pretty thick, so if you're doing lilac, I would do like a couple coats. The pinks and purples, for whatever reason, aren't quite as strong. But okay, so all I'm going to do is I do that blue stripe. Before you transfer, determine what you're transferring on. So for me, I'm doing a little bamboo jar. So I'm just going to have a strip that goes around. It's just going to be one strip about that long. Okay? So whatever you're going to transfer on, don't use a huge piece of paper. Because let's say I took underglaze and I had a piece of paper this big and I put an underglaze print. If I try to print on it, I'm going to transfer underglaze on the whole piece. So only cut what you're going to transfer onto so that you don't have any accidental transfers on things you don't want it to transfer onto. Okay? So I did this beforehand so that I could let it dry. You got to let it dry before you do another coat. And then all I do is I'm going to take yellow underglaze. Now I didn't open any of these, so when you open them, they'll look like this. If you've never used underglaze, they have this aluminum label, so you're going to peel that off. And before you put the lid back on, I actually went to an Amaco talk at the national conference in Chicago, and the Amaco guy told me that you're supposed to peel out this cardboard insert. You just take scissors and peel it out. They said the only reason that's on there is so that the aluminum doesn't stick to the inside of the lid. And he said, actually, if you leave this in here, your underglazes will dry out faster, and then you can't rejuvenate them again. So basically, the only reason it's in here is so that you have to buy more glazes when you don't need them. Okay? So the Amaco guy told me, and this one's fighting with me, usually they're a lot easier to pop out. There we go. Yeah, so if you peel these out, your underglazes won't dry out as fast, or your glazes. So then I'm just going to take a brush. I also have foam brushes over here. So if you want straight lines, you can use the foam brush if you want. The cool thing about these little guys is you can use them right out of the bottle, so the kids don't have to use any tins or anything. So that's really nice. I'm just going to put my brush in, and I'm just going to do stripes on this. This is all I do. So I just do yellow stripes. Super easy. And I've done a lot of experimenting with this technique, and this is kind of the one I like the most. The yellow and blue kind of mix together and make a green in between. And that's all I do. So I just take the blue and put yellow stripes over it. Now, before you transfer, you have to let it dry completely. So I prepped one of these beforehand that's completely dry, so I wouldn't take up too much of your time. Now, this little piece I cut specifically for my little bamboo jar. So notice that the strip fits perfectly on that rim and goes all the way around. So what I do is I always test it first, and then I take scissors and I cut off any excess. The excess gets kind of crazy. So now I have this strip that'll fit right where I want it to transfer. Okay? So then what I'm going to do, and I think I want some clean water, so I'm going to go get that water. You have to be really careful. You cannot touch the underglaze side. Okay? If you touch the underglaze side, it'll come off. So really carefully, you're going to run water about this much. It doesn't matter what temperature the water is. And very slowly, you're only going to run water on the back of your underglaze until it's fully saturated, like this. Okay? So that's what it should look like. Do not put water on the front, only on the back. Then you're going to very carefully take your piece and just very slowly, don't rub it, just kind of like tap it. Now, it's starting to kind of go off, so instead of taking it off, I'm going to reposition it and just fold it over like this. And usually I have to do that a couple times because I accidentally put it on wrong the first time. Okay. Then once you have it on there, don't add any extra water. All you're going to do, make sure your hands are dry, hold it and then very carefully tap it, kind of like what I did on the airplane one. And I'm tapping it because I want some of the underglaze to pull off, because I want that rust look underneath. If you do this with your students, you can actually do any image you want on the newsprint, and you can transfer it on. Now, if you have kids that just want the image to transfer, then you can take more water. After you pat it all down, you can take more water and put it on and just have the kids compress it like this. The more love you give it, or like the more pressure, the more the image will transfer. I don't want the whole image to transfer. I want those breaks in it. So I'm only going to do it about this much, and then very slowly peel it off. And then you get that really nice texture you want. Super easy, right? Sometimes like that, I got too much of a break. So you can always re-put it on there if you wanted to and tap it, but I think I like it the way it is. So then very carefully, again, don't rub it because you'll smear it. So I just go all the way around and I tap it like this. And don't tap it too hard, it'll break your piece.
Fly to the floor.
And then all I do is I just clean it up. So like I got a little bit of underglaze down beyond the image, so I'll just take a sponge and really lightly clean it up, and then all I do is put glaze on the inside. And on mine, I actually use the Amaco Saturation Metallic on the inside to make it look like metal, and then that's how I glaze it. So that's how I make my pottery. Do you have any questions on that part of it?
No.
Do you reuse that newsprint?
You can't really. I mean, you can try. You can have like a ghost print similar to what you would have block printing. But I don't reuse them. Most of the time, more of the ink. But this one was dry for quite a while. Usually I do it like in the day. So maybe because it dried and sat for so long, maybe that's why it didn't transfer as clear. But I think I really like it that way. It's pretty cool. Okay. So yeah, that's how I do my pottery. So I actually, like I sell these a lot of places, and I kind of have that style now. Like it's kind of funny. I'll see. Like I was out and about somewhere, somebody's drinking out of one of my coffee cups. I was like, that's me! Like, that's so cool. And so, because I have this really distinct style, so obviously don't copy me, find your own way of doing it. That's what I tell the high school. So many high school kids will try to make my exact pottery. I'm like, what are you doing, you thief? A bit more challenging. We got these really crappy mirrors, and now we use them for block printing, so that's fun. You want the underglaze to be a little more tacky when you do this. Because if it's too wet, the brayer won't really pick it up. So I'm actually going to, before I cut out of the foam, I'm actually going to put some of the underglaze on my mirror so that I can let it dry slightly a little before I roll it. And this one is like hit or miss. Sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't. This underglaze appears to be pretty tacky, so I think it'll work pretty well. We'll try it out. So I'm going to put the underglaze on there and just let it sit for a minute. This one I haven't taught kids yet. I'm still kind of experimenting with this technique, but I thought it'd be kind of a fun thing to try out today. See how you guys do. Maybe you guys can crack the code better than me. But all I use is the sticky foam, And I love this stuff. Like, I know it's really elementary, but it rocks. So then all I do is I just cut a piece of foam in half. And I'm just going to do a really small little piece. And then on one of them, I just cut a design. So I'm just going to cut some stripes. And then all you're going to do is peel off the back of the one and stick it on the other. So you just peel it and stick. So if you've never used this foam is like dirt cheap too. You can get it for like, I don't know, what is it? $15 for like 30 sheets.
The adhesive's really good.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. I forgot which, don't forget the direction that you cut. So I'm going to do, I think I can do one more here. So I'm just going to do some simple stripes. You can do it however you like. So I just have some simple stripes on my foam. And then you're going to roll it with the brayer, and you're actually going to print on this and use it as a block. So I'm actually going to try to print it on top of the plane and see how it works. So you just take your roller, and with this you have to be a little more gentle because the underglaze is pretty wet. Yeah, and it's not picking up as well as I'd like. I wish, or maybe there's some material that you can use to thicken it up. Or just let the underglaze dry out a bit. But then you just take your little piece of foam and you roll it on really carefully. And I was really smart to use yellow ink on yellow foam. Alright, let's see how it works. So I'll print it on top of this.
Devin, I think Amaco did this demo at National, and they just left the jars open longer so that and she said we purposely only use those for the printing, because she left just the jars open enough for them to dry out a little bit.
Yeah, that's what you should do. So it transferred a little bit, but yeah, if you leave the jars sit out just a tiny bit, that should work better. But so those are the 3 techniques. So you can do the block printing technique, maybe just, I mean, I bet it would work. If you want to do the block printing, maybe just grab a mirror with another person and let the ink sit on there for a while until it gets more dry and then try it. And I think that would work pretty well. I think you could get a better print. But I mean, it printed a little bit, not too bad. So, yeah, very similar. You could almost do like an underlay and then do a stencil on top. That would look kind of cool to give it a little bit of a color. But those are the 3 techniques. Remember too, it fires at any temperature. So no matter what temperature you fire your clay at, you can actually fire these in your kiln. But these tiles I made, I'll just give you a reminder, are cone 5. So this is cone 5 clay. And this is the paoli clay.